Hello, welcome to Geek Lunch Meat. I'm your host Chris. As usual, in this episode I'll be reviewing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that's been airing on Disney Plus. This week it's been an absolutely scorching heatwave in the UK. Well, scorching for us, pretty much as hot as it gets. But did the Obi-Wan Kenobi series sizzle like the twin suns of Tatooine, or was it more like a wet weekend on Camino? Let's delve in and take a look. Now, when they it was originally rumoured that Obi-Wan was going to be one of the anthology films they were making, like Rogue One and Solo, I must admit I originally didn't really think much of it, that it was needed. And now having seen the series, ironically, I think that it actually would have worked better as a 2-hour movie. I think for me overall, it was good in places. It had a great sort of ending, but ultimately, six episodes to tell sort of what little story they had just didn't feel necessary in the end. And also, I think it suffers mainly from prequel-itis. The same with the prequel trilogy. Unfortunately, we know what's coming. We know what characters are going to survive. We know what characters will get killed off. We know where everyone's going to sort of be at the end of the story, and there's not much they could do to deviate from that, especially with main characters, because ultimately we know where they're going to end up. Let's take a look at the story as is. So it's set sort of 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan is still on Tatooine, watching Luke from afar, making sure he's safe. And then he gets a distress call from Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits himself, back to say that Leia has been kidnapped. Now, I actually really liked this idea. I was completely surprised by it. I'd completely forgotten that they had cast Vivian Lyra Blair as Princess Leia. And so then when they go off and you see Alderaan and you see her growing up there, I really enjoyed all that stuff. And she's a great actress. She's sort of on that border of being the precocious little kid that could be really annoying, but doesn't cross the border. And also, she's Princess Leia Organa. She's being raised to be this great diplomat and queen eventually, and also leader of the Rebel Alliance. So she fits that mold perfectly. And story-wise, it makes perfect sense. What would be the only thing that would make Obi-Wan leave Tatooine and stop looking after Luke to go and rescue his twin sister? So I was happy plot-wise overall with what they were doing there. So obviously, bad guys, we've got Vader and we've got the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors have been in the comics, they've been in the video games, and they were mostly in the Rebels cartoon. So this is their first transition into live action, and for the most part they work. It's a shame they're a bit like the Knights of Ren in the sequel trilogy, in that most of them don't really do much. We concentrate on Reva, played by Moses Ingram. I didn't have the massive problem that a lot of internet nerds seem to have with her acting. It was adequate. She is quite shouty. There were some bits where her line delivery I didn't think was great. She didn't have a great deal of range, but I didn't have that much of a problem with her in context to sort of everything else. But for the most part, the other Inquisitors pretty much get sidelined, and I don't think we see them at all, like in the final 2 episodes. Whether they're going to get used again will be another matter. So that basically gives us Vader as the main bad guy, as he should be. But again, he's quite underutilized. We only sort of see him in very small doses. We just see, I think, there is the hint of him at the end of the first episode. It's only really when he has his first encounter with Obi-Wan, and then his sort of final fight with him, that we actually see him any great deal. And again, as I previously said, the problem with these fights is we know they're going to end in stalemates, because we know where the story's going. And to be honest, there was the much celebrated sort of return of Hayden Christensen. Apparently, everyone's forgotten that everyone hated his line delivery in the prequels, and that's fine now. Apparently, it was everyone was happy that he was back. Again, pretty much a glorified cameo. One of the episodes literally just had some flashbacks dotted through it of him and Obi-Wan training with lightsabers and having a discussion, and then you briefly see him in the final episode where Obi-Wan sort of slices like a big gash down his helmet, and we see Anakin sort of underneath. So yeah, pretty much glorified cameo. That final fight where he does, I thought that was really well done. I'm surprised we didn't get more of Anakin, Vader with his helmet off at certain points, so we could see Hayden. But that final fight where they sort of mixed in his voice with James Earl Jones, where some of his speech would still come out with like Vader's speech synthesizer thing, was really well done. I wish we had more of that throughout the series. Ewan McGregor was great, doing his Alec Guinness impression, but continuing on from the prequel trilogy. It was nice to see him when he was trying not to use the Force and not using his lightsaber to call attention to himself, actually fighting people and hand to hand, and using a blaster, all very uncivilized. That was great. One thing I thought was a bit weird is when you're in disguise and you don't want you're being hunted, or the Jedi are being hunted by the Inquisitors, is that your main disguise probably shouldn't be something that looks suspiciously like a Jedi robe with your lightsaber dangling at your hip. It seemed a very strange sort of choice when he was wandering around Tatooine, and knowing the Inquisitors were actually there in the town as well. But apparently that was a disguise he went with. The rest of the cast were fine. Indira Varma as Tala, who is helping the Jedi escape down the path. It's sort of, I suppose, sort of linked to the rebellion. She's like a sort of rebel spy in the Imperial forces, which was nicely done. Kamal Nanjiani as a sort of pretending to be a Jedi in order to sort of fleece people for their money and helping them off world. Turns out to be a good guy and help out. He doesn't have a great deal to do, which is a shame. He's a great personality. I really like him. Again, same with O'Shea Jackson Jr. I had to look up his character name, Roken. He's with these rebels who are helping the Jedi. And a pretty bland. That whole sort of group doesn't do much. When one of them is killed in the speeders when they come to rescue them from the Inquisitor's base, I suppose you're meant to feel things, but you don't really know the person at any rate. The music, again, like the cast, is adequate. It's the theme that John Williams did for Obi-Wan is nice. It's typical John Williams Star Wars music. The rest of the music for the show is okay. Nothing outstanding. Nothing that's sort of like the Mandalorian themes. And the best bits come in the final episode where we get the Imperial March, where Vader is brooding in his castle on Mustafar, and we get a bit of a Leia's theme when Obi-Wan is saying goodbye to her, and remind you that this is probably what the show's been missing. I know sort of Disney seem loath to use a lot of the original music, which is a shame. Which is fine if it's done well. The Mandalorian, the score, by Ludwig Göransson is absolutely superb. And then there's very little touches of the actual, the original themes used where needed. I think Obi-Wan, being a sort of legacy character, having his original theme, and obviously Vader, the Imperial March being used a bit more, I think would have been a better choice. The effects work continues to be great for a TV show, but iffy in places, not matching up to the movies as you'd expect. Their reliance on using the volume, this big area they've got with the LED screens behind, I think it works best in interior scenes. I think a lot of the exteriors, unfortunately, tend to look a bit fake. And some of the sets where they were all holed up behind these blast doors and the Imperials are trying to get in, I think it was in the penultimate episode, and they're in these caves and they look a bit studio bound, sort of like polystyrene, styrofoam, carved rock walls, which makes it look a bit cheap. Also, some of the camera work, especially in that scene, I noticed it particularly. It's a very shaky handheld style camera work, which I'm fine with, except it just seemed sometimes a lot of it was just shaking and cutting off people's heads. It just looked quite strangely badly framed to me. It didn't look particularly cinematic, which is odd. The first episode, I thought was actually quite cinematic and really well done. I thought it was a step up from the Book of Boba Fett. I thought, oh yeah, this is looking good. It then just seemed to not be able to sort of sustain that as the series went on. And some of the CGI was downright ropey, and it seemed to be to do with the scale of things, particularly when they're escaping from the Inquisitor's base, and they're about to get caught, and the sort of the snow speeders that we've seen from Empire Strikes Back come in to rescue them. The CGI was just downright lousy, and they looked far too small. It was almost like they wanted a shot that had all the people in and these two snow speeders in. It was almost like they scaled them down in size, and they look really strange. And again, there's a shot in the penultimate episode where they're taking off in a ship, and Vader uses the Force to pull the ship back down. Again, they obviously, wanted to get Vader in shot, with the ship. and the ship looks really small considering the amount of people that meant to be on it. Yeah, it's strange, but yeah, it looked. The rest of the effects work was pretty good, but that sort of stuff looked a bit ropey to me. One of the other things that I found a bit strange was that apparently being stabbed in the chest by a lightsaber doesn't kill you anymore. Reva stabs the Grand Inquisitor. He survives with a throwaway line that apparently revenge is the best form of medicine, something like that. And then Vader then stabs Reva straight through the chest, and she happily survives that and wanders off as well. So, I mean, when Qui-Gon got stabbed at the end of Phantom Menace, apparently, really, he should have shrugged that off. And indeed, he then, Darth Maul then got chopped in half, who then wandered off and survived that as well. So yeah, apparently it seems Qui-Gon not as tough as he appeared. He should have shrugged it off apparently and carried on with the rest of the movie. Talking of which, we did see Liam Neeson turning up as Qui-Gon as Force Ghost. It was pretty, probably the worst kept secret. He said no, he wouldn't be in a TV show. He would only come back for a movie. He doth protest too much. Especially then because it was announced the short animations they're doing for kids later in the year. He's doing the voice of Qui-Gon in one of those. So it seemed very unlikely that he wasn't going to turn up. And when he did turn up right at the end of the last episode, he had like 1 or 2 lines and then disappeared. And that was that. A bit of a letdown. And it does make me wonder, they keep, they're sort of saying about now, if there's enough audience for it, then they could, they're quite happy to carry on and do another season. I believe I read somewhere it was like one of the most streamed shows going, especially in Disney Plus's, so I suppose short history. So it wouldn't surprise me if it does get renewed, which don't think it needs another series. I don't know where they could do something. I don't think Obi-Wan needs to be in it. As I say again, we know his story. We know he's going to end up sitting around on Tatooine, waiting for Luke, to get hit by some sand people. I wonder if maybe looking at it from another angle, actually just showing us a series of The Purge with Vader and the Inquisitors hunting the rest of the Jedi in the galaxy. Whether or not they would want to go for a series that shows anything from the mostly from the Bagwell point of view, I don't know. And ultimately, again, though, you're going to have Jedi around that are being hunted down. There's hardly any Jedi left in the galaxy by the time A New Hope comes around. So again, you're sort of writing yourself into a corner, and you can't have any great big events happening that would contradict, what happens later. So I think ultimately Obi-Wan, a mixed bag. I don't think it was as good as Mandalorian. It was better, I thought, than Book of Boba Fett, but not the Book of Boba Fett episodes that essentially became Mandalorian 2.5. I think a 2-hour movie would have been a better idea, and I wonder if with the sort of failure of Solo that's now robbed us of the rest of these anthology movies, so we're now stuck with Disney doing these TV shows, and I don't know if a lot of the stories they seem to be coming up with actually warrant to be spread out over so many episodes. Hopefully, once we get Taika Waititi's new movie, which is going to be set after the sequel trilogy, and we've got a whole new range of characters and this whole massive galaxy to play in again, and we don't know what's coming, that then they can start linking shows together, in MCU type fashion, where they're sort of talking about doing, and we can have these series telling smaller stories and then linking in to movies at the cinema again. I think hopefully that would be better than having shows where we ultimately know where they're going. I think hopefully that will free up Star Wars again a bit more, so that we can have TV shows where we don't know everything that's coming. Obviously, we have Andor on the horizon as the next Star Wars show, which does look good. That's filmed out on location and not in the volume, so it'll be interesting to see how much feel that's got. Again, unfortunately, obviously, we know it is the prequel to Rogue One, so we know sort of where the story is going to go. So yeah, ultimately, Obi-Wan, an okay effort, a good ending. Some episodes that meandered in the middle, a story that didn't really need to be told. Hopefully Disney will learn from the bits that worked and the bits that didn't, and improve on them for the later shows. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you've seen, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It would be absolutely great to have you. It helps us out a great deal. So until next time, eat, geek, and be merry.